Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy, where we highlight the top giving news, stories, and the power of crypto for good. My name is Nick Mikhalevsky, Senior Sales Manager here at The Giving Block, and as always, joined by my colleague Pietro Moran, Director of Crypto at Shift4. Pietro, how's it going?
It's going great, Nick. Good to see you. I am super thrilled for the episode we're going to have today, but it's great because this is a special kind of edition of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy, having a special guest who I'll let you introduce in a moment. But yeah, we're not going to look at the prices. We're going to do kind of a different run of show this week. I'm really pumped to kick that off, and I think we have a lot of great content as we go into the final part of the year, which Nick, this is your lane, but as I understand it, the most important time for giving generally. And we're super thrilled to kick it off with a few big announcements and a special guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So, totally throwing out the regular agenda. Wanted to devote an entire episode to announcing a brand new campaign for this year's year end giving season. So, without further ado, please welcome to the show Pat Duffy, co founder of The Giving Block. Pat, thank you so much for joining.
What an absolute pleasure to be here, boys.
Yeah, so I mean, Pat, we're this just launched this morning, so why don't maybe you kind of kick things off with, what prompted us to kind of go down this route in the first place? It's been a really unique year for crypto, and how do we land on the Crypto for Good campaign?
Yeah, I mean, we started setting up nonprofits to take crypto back in 2018. And within the first 12 months of doing the solutioning, I figured out pretty quickly we needed to run some campaigns. There were a lot of nonprofits trying to figure out how do I meet crypto donors? Where are they? How do I talk to them? Started making toolkits and stuff. So we started a thing called Crypto Giving Tuesday. We've been running that annually. And then that kind of arced into a end of year campaign that we do every year to help the nonprofits tie together what is their biggest fundraising window with their crypto and now stock and DAF fundraising. Um, Last year, we tried to expand outside of just asking for money in terms of a fundraising campaign, tried to make it a bit more focused on crypto philanthropy folks. We had the Spaces of Crypto Philanthropy project, highlight a lot of the big donors and the nonprofit folks who are making the space interesting and I think driving the most impact. And then this year, we just wanted to take it one step further. So we're focused not just on crypto philanthropy for this year's campaign, but on crypto being a force for good overall. So we're going to be talking about a lot of crypto for good use cases, going beyond just the donations to the charities and what they're getting done. On the charity side of things, beyond just the donation dollars that are hitting the charities, we're going to be doing more of these one-to-one impact metrics that you can see. Try to see how many individuals we're getting clean water access or vaccines, getting families housed, children access to education, et cetera, and really trying to turn that into data and demonstrate more tangible impact. And then we're going to start telling more crypto for good stories outside of philanthropy entirely. So blockchain-based patient registries, banking the unbanked, women in Afghanistan getting autonomous access to financial accounts for the first time. Folks like Chris in Yellow Card in Africa focused on getting cheap payments to folks and remittances. Crypto is a force for good overall outside of just philanthropic giving, and we want to be a bigger player in the conversation around that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, we've seen, the stories and the activation, like the donor stories, the what we see across social media with some of these like Web3 projects, and just the fact that how much philanthropy is certainly baked in the crypto ecosystem, but really cool that we're going to be able to kind of go beyond that, a little bit beyond sort of like our typical kind of swim lane. So for organizations that are getting ready for year end and are seeing this campaign, what are some of the first things that we should be doing in terms of like activation and getting involved with this campaign? And as we go into year end, what are some of the things that nonprofits should be thinking about as it pertains to crypto for good launching today?
Yeah, first thing to think about is just the environment. as fundraisers, right? If you look a couple years back, we had FTX collapse in the down market. Bearish conditions made it harder to fundraise crypto in general. People just didn't have the same um, portfolio sizes of appreciated crypto with that awesome tax incentive that makes it so much better to give crypto than cash. Um, since the end of 2022, crypto's up 3x from there in terms of market cap. Over the last 12 months, it's up 2x, right? There's tens of millions of people in the US where crypto is exponentially more tax advantageous to give than giving with cash. So nonprofits just have these conditions where if you're giving donors these two options, one donation method lends itself to significantly higher average gift sizes, more tax motivation, needing to get those gifts executed by the end of the year in order to take advantage of the capital gains offsets, um, versus accepting things like cash that are just not as advantageous. And then we combine that with the fact that the S&P and the stock market's doing really well. We've got a couple of years of growth. So you've got folks sitting on crypto, on stocks. Some of that has moved into donor advised fund accounts. These tax optimized giving methods are just going to be more viable than they normally would, and there's more capital to be going after. 260 billion sitting in DAFs, tens of millions of donors who have appreciated crypto and appreciated stocks.
Yeah, and I don't want to be hogging the mic here, so Pietro, love to bring you into the conversation too.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. But Pat, I had one question for you, which I found really unique. And when I talk to crypto companies and projects, typically I think there is maybe something lost in translation when it pertains to, what does one Bitcoin worth of impact or one Ethereum worth of impact mean, right? I think when we're trying to measure against like the USD value of what, a Bitcoin is, right? We're talking about 65 plus $1,000 around these prices. One thing, and would advise anybody listening into the show in the show notes to check out the link to the landing page for this campaign, because on there I noticed we have a lot of impact statements, right? What that means is, like you said, visceral, obvious, understood outcomes that come from crypto philanthropy. Could you explain a bit more how both the crypto ecosystem and our frontline fundraisers are working to kind of tell that story? Like, I feel like that narrative is so much more powerful when you see, oh, we built 10 houses or dug 15 wells with crypto, and translating that messaging, where some people, they say, oh, I can accept one Bitcoin, that maybe doesn't sound as strong, or doesn't resonate as much because they're not following it every day.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I mean, it starts from a PR standpoint and just kind of like a donor audience expansion thing in terms of like the value from giving crypto that people in the crypto community and beyond just aren't really recognizing. We work with nonprofits every year to announce that they're taking crypto for the first time, or these campaigns like the American Cancer Society raised an entire research fund that was fully funded using cryptocurrency. They raised over $1 million. Those sorts of fundraising campaigns not only generate a lot of donation impact, but for every nonprofit we've ever done that with, it's the top performing press release of the year for the organization, right? So there's something in donating crypto, to your point, about like, here's a school that was built entirely using Bitcoin that's compelling to a crypto community member and compelling to the media and people in general, that I think a lot of nonprofits and donors don't necessarily think about. Like, a lot of anonymous giving happens in crypto where you lose some of that impact. And folks forget that if you look up, Google Trends, people checking Bitcoin price is like more common than people searching for folks like Kim Kardashian or like presidential candidates. Like, it's a giant search engine optimization, marketing tool, audience expansion tool. And talking about the crypto donations specifically that are happening is also what gets you in front of crypto audiences and inspires more giving. And then, like you're saying, the actual metrics themselves, donors and the nonprofits need to do a better job, I think, tying back to one-to-one impact metrics, because they'll get these donations, they'll blur it into a campaign where it's crypto and it's cash and it's everything else. There's no carve out for the crypto specific impact. And then they'll miss opportunities to say things like, $500,000 worth of Bitcoin went toward the school development versus, like you're saying, it's a handful of units of a particular token. And you've got these older donors picking up a paper being like, so-and-so got 5 Bitcoins, big whoop, like it's video game money.
Yeah. I always laugh when I see those like Instagram reels or those shorts where it's like somebody on the street goes up to someone and says, "Hey, would you rather take $1,000 cash or 1 Bitcoin?" And half the time people are saying, "I'll take the $1,000," not realizing, you know, 65 grand for a Bitcoin, right? And there's still a lot of that demystification. I feel like that needs to happen. And I think this campaign definitely lends itself with like a positive spin on it, right? It's all for good and for charity. It's not like, oh, you missed out on just getting a couple bucks in your pocket. I feel like this is a really great way to emphasize, but with a twist, right? It's like, oh, people impacted or things done, milestones achieved through crypto. And I always just, chuckle and I'm like, oh man, people are really not checking the price. But sometimes it's always good to have that reinforcement of the narrative because, we're in so deep. Sometimes we have to pull up and meet the audience where they are is what I feel like. And so I think it's a really, really great way to emphasize not only impact, but also do so in a way that it's not just us talking about price and like number go up.
100%. There's on both sides of the fence. Like this is when we were first, starting the company, like in talking to investors too, we were just like, there's so much potential here and no one's paying attention. Like I still feel from an educational standpoint on the nonprofit and the donor side, like there's just so much value in this intersection that if you don't talk about it a lot, like this is why the campaign matters. Like people will forget that crypto is a force for good. Every new technology, right? When they came out with trains, people thought that your cells would disassemble and stuff because you were moving so fast. Like people get terrified of new things. If you go on Netflix, there's never going to be a documentary if we don't talk about this kind of stuff around the fact that the American Cancer Society is like funding research using cryptocurrency, right? They're just going to talk about like one guy who went on the internet and tried to make a crypto scam. Donors don't really know, and I shouldn't even say donors, crypto investors don't really think of their crypto as a donation tool because they don't usually think about spending appreciated crypto because it's like a taxable event. Like they're always stacking sats and hodling, laser eyes, diamond hands. Like, why would I lose crypto when I could just donate cash instead? You have to explain this wonky tax arbitrage move where it's like, no, you donate crypto, and then if you want, take the same amount of cash, buy back the same position. You now have the same amount of cryptos if you donated the cash. The charity gets all the money. No one pays taxes on it. You're at today's cost basis. The $1 million you had in crypto that was really worth 850 grand after you paid the tax man is now $1 million in crypto worth $1 million in crypto. Like it's an amazing move, but it's not a bumper sticker. So it's hard to explain to the donors. And then on the nonprofit side, like you were saying, we went around a conference recently. We said, what do you think one Bitcoin is worth? And the average response was $100. And we were like, oh God, well, if you think about it that way, you're not thinking about how much money is in there. You don't think, oh, average gift size is 5 to 15 grand. You don't think, oh, I'm getting a major gift donor transaction, but the donor is late 20s, early 30s, right? Future proof, great wealth transfer type stuff. It's this huge vertical that nonprofits just don't really pay as much attention to because someone needs to tell them that there's trillions of dollars in it.
Yeah. It's, definitely, I'm a bit of a, biased person here, right? I'm working at the Giving Block. I'm bought into this, right? But I can certainly, enjoy telling the story and I tell it all the time. My giving's completely shifted, dramatically, right? Because, I've certainly supported causes that I care about, for many, many years, but, crypto specifically has opened up an entirely new avenue for my charitable giving. And so for the nonprofits that might be listening here, kind of like speaking from a real donor, things are starting to shift, right? I mean, I did a post recently about an organization that I supported in the past that's starting to put crypto into like those regular like year-end appeals and the hard copy mailers. They had a fantastic QR code that went right to the donation page. And it's those kinds of things that make it really easy for me to just kind of like inspire some of those moments of generosity because it takes literally seconds. Like I can just, it's almost as easy as just like texting someone, a donation. But especially with some of these impact stories, I mean, for me, it's a great way I can give more, right? I'm not dipping into, the disposable, funds that I need for, the everyday essentials. But, the fact that I can, provide this impact and some of the impact stories for some of the organizations that are supported, like this little bit of cryptocurrency is going to fund like medical research, like fantastic. I mean, it's something I can just shoot over in seconds. I mean, it's such a great feeling. So we're starting to see organizations, and at least even some ones that I interact with on a daily basis, starting to put this into the conversation. So really think that having this campaign this year at this time is a really great moment to build on some of this momentum that we've seen play out in 20, certainly how the markets have matured a lot in 2024. But I think it could be a really interesting, year end season as we broaden this conversation and try to really shine a light on the impact here.
100%. The maturation is really important too. Like we were saying, just it's not just market cap. Like crypto's been around for 15 years, right? It's been around longer than Instagram and Stripe and these staples that nonprofits are used to interfacing with. Like it's been around forever, and it's doing all these interesting things in terms of sovereignty and privacy and financial inclusion and transparency. It's a technology that is fundamentally changing the way payments work. You can look at the recent Stripe acquisition and see that people are starting to figure out that you can use this technology to make payments and financial ecosystems more efficient. And nonprofits just need to hear more about it. And if it's not discussed, right, nonprofits are never going to be like, oh, this is the top performing asset class of the last decade. Oh, it's on pace to generate some of or one of the largest generators of millionaires and billionaires from this generation. Oh, it's got the highest average gift size. Oh, these donors are on the younger end, but they give $1,000 or more to charity more often than older stock investors do. Like you have to add all of those pieces together and then help them realize I don't have to deal with price volatility. I don't have to hold cryptocurrency. I don't need to move cryptocurrency. It's not some like blockchain transparency initiative and like a cash transfer program. It's literally you've got hundreds of millions of people in the world, tens of millions in the US who have an asset that's super tax efficient to donate to a charity. And if you give them a button where they can click send and it poofs into cash for the charity, a lot of people are doing it. There's billions of dollars being donated.
Totally. I want to pivot to really quickly what's, kind of at the top of the banner on the landing page, 200 million. Would love to hear the significance around that number. And then also, as we go into the end of the year, right, we're in the final weeks of October. And as we know, nonprofit sector is really gearing up for a big final splash here at the end of the year. Would love to hear, one, the significance. What does 200 million stand for? What does that represent, like you said, from the maturation side of the industry? And then from, in terms of like a call to action, right? It's already late in the year to be asking for anything crazy over the top. Don't try to build anything in 3 days or anything, but would love to hear from your perspective, like, what are you calling on nonprofits to be doing, crypto donors, and then folks who are maybe just generally interested? I think we kind of run the gamut of our listeners of folks who are maybe like dipping their toes in because they're not quite into crypto philanthropy yet. Then like the OGs who've been doing it, but just want to keep, on that continual education grind. And then, from the other side of it, the donors who are starting to line up and kind of think through those year-end gifts and that tax optimization. Would love to hear your thoughts on best way to activate for those.
Yeah, first on the 200 million. So the platform, the Giving Block, right? We do crypto, we do stock, we do credit cards now, donor advised fund transfers, like make a lot of stuff easy. The crypto alone being 200 million through this platform as just one small piece of the puzzle, I think is a really exciting indicator for nonprofits. Again, back to them not, I think, fully appreciating the scale of adoption that we've already seen in the nonprofit sector. Right, the majority of the Forbes top 100 charities are already building programs with us and actively fundraising. But we've still only got, a couple thousand clients who are plugged into the Giving Block with these profiles and running campaigns. And of that 2,000, especially after the previous bear market, a lot of them are still kind of in crypto hibernation mode, right? Mm-hmm. They kind of dial back the crypto fundraising efforts when the prices are down. And a lot still haven't even woken up. I think when we get to 70, 75K sustainable Bitcoin prices, we'll see more efforts. But we have a much smaller percentage of our clients fundraising crypto right now, super proactively. And we're seeing more donation volume than we had when we had exponentially more of our clients like really going out there and beating the drum. So it's a great number. It's a great indicator, but it should be a relatively small goal. Like blowing by that and getting to 250, 300 million is totally feasible just because there's so little connection happening between nonprofits and donors. The more these big charities we get closer to the end of the year start really beating the drum, like that number is going to crank up. And we've already raised 10 times more this year than we had raised in all of our end of year fundraising last year.
Yeah, and we're showing a couple things here, on the screen in terms of, how people can get involved in this campaign, whether it's a fundraiser, partnering, working with our private donor services team. And for some of those organizations that have built those relationships through the last cycle, like you said, we're, the amount of, generosity that they're seeing kind of flowing through the rails for those organizations that have, kept this in front of their donors, should be positioned really well going into this year end giving season. I think this campaign is just going to help amplify all those efforts as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, not to get you caught up on a prediction, Pat, but it feels like the first 100 million is the hardest. Maybe the second isn't. I'd be curious to understand from your seat as somebody who really pioneered this entire vertical of crypto philanthropy generally. Um, you know, where do you see us, as a crypto fundraising community, get to a billion? Really start talking about like the big league numbers, where this is just kind of part of the foundation of everyone's giving strategy. Would love to get a sense, and for our audience, what you think those trends are going to look like, especially as we've seen the market kind of mature throughout the past couple of years in particular. Would love to get your take on that, even if it doesn't have to be a hard, line in the sand as far as a date.
No, I mean, there's a bunch of different, there's a ton of like maturation that still needs to happen. So we can just run through different areas where we know that's going to be the case. So one, on the donor side, tax education and understanding this opportunity, like even for things like stock donations, it's really been kind of a older donor and working with wealth advisors type move. Like, because it wasn't easy to transfer, all of the infrastructure, all of the fundraising from the nonprofit side, their landing pages, their ways to give, the appeals that we see, stocks have never really existed, these other types of non-cash donation methods, as like active fundraising, because you weren't able to just click a couple buttons and initiate a stock transfer like you can now. So all of the infrastructure has not been built for direct appeals, for stocks, for crypto, for these other things. Now that it's so easy, we need this whole shift to happen in the nonprofit sector. Because right now, when you go to a donation form, it's like, do you want to give 20 bucks with a credit card? Otherwise, click through 15 different links and see if you can find a stock page. Like, stock giving is so repressed versus where it ought to be. And the same thing is true for crypto. Like, there's no reason there shouldn't be billions of dollars every year being donated in crypto, just from like a mathematical, what makes sense for the user standpoint. Anyone who has appreciated stock or crypto, who's making a sizable donation in cash, is just uninformed about it, right? They're probably, especially the younger donors, they're trading on Coinbase for their crypto. They're on Robinhood for stocks. They use TurboTax for their taxes. Like, they're not working with a financial advisor or a wealth advisor who says, hey, this is a donation method. It's easy to give now. You can transfer. Here are the offsets. And the nonprofits they support aren't asking for this stuff, generally speaking. Again, we've got a couple thousand clients here, but if you look at the 1.6 million charities out there, like, there should be a lot more nonprofits where they can toggle away from a credit card and into a crypto transaction. The average gift size is 30 to 80 times larger. So there's no reason that there shouldn't be more people giving this way. The donors need to see it from the nonprofits as an option. If I scroll down a fundraising email, I should see, hey, we've got these tax smart strategies, right? You can give a stock, crypto. If you have money in a DAF account, we take it. Almost no charities do that now. And then the donors need to just be more educated and aware. I think TaxBit and other partners like that are going to do a better job of that. If those two things happen, right, the wealth creation that's happening in the space is going to intersect with it. And stock should obviously grow, but cryptocurrency has, I think, the highest upside that's untapped right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the interesting side effects that I think is playing out, it still is, just started, but I mean, this year with the blending of like the traditional finance world and the crypto world, now you've got the world's largest wealth managers, financial advisors, competing for, sort of like this next generation client that has, digital assets incorporated in their portfolio. Not only is it like the hottest selling product in some of their, financial, portfolio stack to discuss with clients, but the great knock-on effect here is that education piece that finally starts to mature as well. So when we're taking profits and we're building a smart financial portfolio, there's now new professional tax education, planning education, and some element of charitable giving that will, no question, like, be a part of the mix. So, for our team that talks to, registered investment advisors and, maybe a high net worth individual, their proxies, their lawyers, their financial advisors, we'll start to see more of like a maturity out in the space. And we've got some of the largest institutions in the world that are now going to bring thousands of advisors and thousands of, tax smart, ways that they should be thinking about this. So I think the future is really bright, especially as, the acceleration of crypto is, I think, going to speed up that education process too.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you're an advisor, you're a charity, even for crypto companies, right, within their direct interfaces, like there's copy and paste ways to create a channel for your audience, your users, the people you're advising to initiate a transfer using these assets that they have under management and get this crazy tax incentive. Again, the user pays no taxes on the crypto, the stock that they transfer to a 501c3, and neither does the nonprofit. It just erases the tax liability on the entire amount of asset that you're transferring. So it's just like, to your point, if there's an advisor and you can talk to them and they can just send me a link where they've got copy and paste giving forms for crypto stock and DAF, I can click it and initiate transfers and take advantage of that. Like, I'm going to do that. If I go into Coinbase and when I'm pulling a tax form at the end of the year, there's some prompt where I can initiate transfers. It's got a little calculator for me. The more that stuff starts popping up, right, that's where a lot of the potential is. And then the charities also, like we talked about, need to put it in there. If I just see a donate button that takes me to a credit card form, I'm going to keep giving $20 a month versus a nonprofit who sent me a direct mailer recently, which I thought was cool, like a physical piece of mail. And I could just hover over a QR code and initiate a DAF transfer to the charity. I did it because it took 20 seconds and it was easy. And that's going to be the difference, I feel like, between a lot of nonprofits who grow or shrink as the frictionless giving gets more and more popular.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to those organizations that are starting to do this. You guys are doing the right things. Man, does it work? So love to see that. Hopefully, we'll help more organizations start to add some of that, sprinkle it into their year-end appeals, and hopefully, a campaign like Crypto for Good just gives you more resources to help kind of like amplify that message and all of that effort. I guess, Pat, maybe as a way to kind of round out. Anything else that you want to make sure people are aware of, something we didn't ask, kind of give you sort of the last word and in terms of where you want to shine a light on some important things with the campaign and maybe even some things in general for, year end?
Yeah, I'd say there's 4 audiences that we're trying to like make headway with throughout this campaign. So one is nonprofits. Like the main thing I'd say to nonprofits is it's unbelievably easy to accept crypto donations. And then the fundraising can be super integrative too. The more charities we talk to, we just hear it all the time where they're like, which cryptos do I take? How do we accept it? How do we make it compliant? How do we sell it? What about price volatility? What about tax receiving? Like, most charities don't know that's all been automated. And then on the fundraising, every charity wants to run like these crypto campaigns. Like what we do with Save the Children. It's it's a great thing to aspire to, but the beginning of it is literally just adding an extra button in a newsletter or an email that takes you to these pages where you've got ACH, you've got crypto, you've got stocks, DAF, whatever you want to take, opening some additional doors to donors. So nonprofits just know it's easy, and we want as many nonprofits as possible to set this up. On the donor side, again, it's easy and it's super tax advantageous. The one thing I'd say to donors is like, don't forget about our private donor services. We've got a page on our site where if you're looking for a nonprofit that we don't currently support, or you're trying to send a small cap crypto where you're sending a giant transfer and you don't want to get through some site you've never used before without talking to somebody, like we've got David on the team and just a really good donor services team. So any donor who's looking to learn more about the giving method, get a bit educated, explore some serious giving options, we've got that as a resource. And then for partners, like don't forget, as a crypto company, a project, an influencer, it's one of the easiest ways to grow, right, your audience and what you're trying to accomplish as an organization, and then help the nonprofit grow. It's so legitimizing, and there's tons of nonprofits. Again, we've got American Cancer Society, Save the Children, American Heart Association, United Way Worldwide, Feeding America, like so many of these big brands don't really have crypto partners right now. And as someone who worked in alliance development with pharma companies and these health associations, like it was such a big part of how they did business, how they expanded, got drugs listed on Medicare Part D. Like there's so much power in having a strong charity partner. And there's nonprofits chomping at the bit for that opportunity. Like if you're a project of any size or an influencer, like running a campaign with one of these big nonprofits, you can grow your audience, you can grow your bottom line, you can help the charity out a lot. So definitely explore that as an option and talk to us. Like we want that to be a priority. And then finally, the media folks, like we will try to make it as easy as possible to make these stories compelling. of course. But if you're trying to drive crypto adoption, like people need to realize that the technology is a force for good. Like there's just going to be environmental FUD, and the only story that makes it to the news will be the one scammer, and then people will forget that, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars in fines to the banks who are processing like money laundering. It's just like no one's going to think about that, but every time there's a negative crypto story, it's the only thing that pops up because I don't think we do enough job or good enough job as an industry talking about the four good stories. So if you're a journalist who's interested in covering this stuff, like we'll get you the most compelling stories we can. Obviously, connecting with the charities, their leadership, put together good content, but we're looking for more partners from the media to tell these stories to try to paint a better picture here.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we're really excited for this campaign. We get to go beyond what we've done in the past. I think it opens up a lot of doors for a lot of great storytelling, activating a whole new, series of modern philanthropists, and getting to tell about all the great work that is being powered by crypto. And it's going to be a fantastic, year-end campaign that we get to start working with. We'll have links in the show notes if you want to hit the campaign page. As we showed before, there's a lot of different ways you can get involved. And for the audiences that Pat just described, whether you're a nonprofit, a donor, a project, a journalist, we've got all kinds of great information that will show you how to get involved. And of course, if you're someone out there that just wants to go ahead and make a donation, you're already ready. A lot of great causes right there for you to check out. So with that, I think we'll kind of wrap things up for this week's episode, but there's a lot that's going to be coming down the pike this year end. Crypto for Good launches today. Stay tuned for a lot of great things for the Giving Block. And of course, if you are an organization that is already doing things with crypto, make sure that you let our team know too. We want to amplify those messages as much as we can, just so we can continue to spread this force for good as far and wide as we can. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.